Welcome to the Creative Plan Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and rpgpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
I thought you were looking for remember which panel you're on, so you don't talk about the wrong thing.
Well, that would be helpful too. I've done that before. Thanks for reminding me.
I feel like we get to do one together every year.
Okay, I'll be moderator because I am the business of art. That is my business, the business of art.
Good.
So I can deal with this because I've been art agent as well. So I think that helps. Right?
Great. Yeah. Works for
Okay.
me. No complaints.
My 2 cents in, as usual.
I like it.
I like it. Try to contain me.
I apologize, I don't have my nameplate because I left it on the back
So
of the
then tell them
table.
your name.
Liz Danforth.
There you go.
This is Liz Danforth.
She's awesome.
All right, so what we should do is start at one end, introduce yourself and art-wise, what you do or like to do.
All right, my name is Janie Franz. I am an author. I've got 12 titles with Music Up Publishing. I'm also their acquisition editor and one of their content editors. I also do...
Excuse me, but maybe we can close the doors. Yeah, because I'm hearing you then as well. Let's do that.
Echo off the back wall.
Yeah, that's
I also do academic editing for graduate students. And I also do business ghostwriting and a number of other things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give them your name and...
Oh, my name, yes, I have one of those.
Oh, I
I
guess.
have several, actually. I'm
Yes, you do.
Eric Schumacher today. I am an actor, I am a film producer and director. If you look at the back of your program guide, this is one of mine, Revenge of Zoe, premiering here at 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
Thank you. With some other wonderful producers. I am best known for being actually one of the only people on one of just a small handful of people on Earth to have played both Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday in nationally publicized productions.
Excellent,
And
yes.
based on this film, I have also played a ninja and a mermaid. I'm the only one in the world ever in the history of humankind or any other kind I'm aware of. So I've been performing as an actor basically since I was 6 years old. My parents raised me that way.
Lucky you.
Yeah, well, they really, it was wonderful. They just shared their passion for it with me, and I got the bug really early, and I started directing and producing at a relatively early age that I won't say because then you'll know what my actual age is, which I don't say.
I wouldn't worry if I were you.
And,
I was going to say, yeah,
and,
you're young thing.
I work on all sides of media and multimedia, and I'm also the current president of a small production organization known as Sealy Studios.
Okay. I'm Liz Danforth. I am best known for my art. I also do writing, editing, and game development. I go back to the second oldest role-playing game, Tunnels and Trolls, and that's where I first started hitting my work as business, but ended up working for everybody from Traveler and all the Middle-earth licensed work. Computer game-wise, I was responsible for the Rabid Dog in Wasteland 1. I wrote 3 months for Wasteland 2, and they ended up throwing out everything except my last name for the main character. But I've been working off and on steadily, but in different areas. And so a lot of people know me only as one thing or another. I literally, I was at one of the guests up at Mile High Con a couple weeks ago, and one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, I knew you as a writer before I ever knew you did artwork." And this is typical. They'll know just one segment of me. But generally, people know me as an artist. I did Magic the Gathering. I did. I qualified for Academy of Gaming Arts and Design Hall of Fame. Gamma's creative field back in '96. And beyond that, like you, I'm not going to be talking about my earliest stuff because you'll realize that I'm available for Medicare.
Some of us
Don't be
already
ashamed.
are.
Don't be proud of it.
Yeah, I'm glad I lived that long.
There's a little thing crawling on there. Don't drink from it.
Yeah, no.
Oh, thank you.
Your turn.
Your turn.
We're not
No, because
Maybe
I'm
last-
moderating,
oh,
so
okay. I'm Jessica Feinberg. I've worked in a variety of different creative jobs. I did a lot of graphic design, editing, and adapting for manga for Tokyo Pop, which was a really strange job that I fell into. But I primarily know for my art and illustration, and now I do crowdfunded my entire own series of illustrated and written books, and then also my own games, and I've just been contracted for a couple of board games in addition to that for other companies, so I kind of do a little bit of everything.
Very good. I'd like to toss in here too, now that we're bringing up games. I also do proofreading for Final Fantasy games out of Minneapolis. So.
And hopefully we won't make this an age thing too much, but one of the reasons I became an artist were 3 articles in the first 4 or 5 issues of Duelist magazine, one of which was an interview with this marvelous lady. One of my first panels like 5 years ago at TusCon, we were on a panel together. I was like, oh my god, I'm on a panel. I'm so not
Yeah,
No, I'm all cool. It's fine. I'm over it.
I like that this is such a diverse group of talents in many areas. I wasn't sure what they were going to just put artists or who they were going to put. So I think this is fascinating because although we're doing different things, my drawing teacher used to say we're all the same but we're different. He's referring to anatomy, but that's the whole point. The creative process is in all of us and trying to book society at the same time. But no, I've been putting covers on books for 38 years, but I'm not at my age either, but I don't care. You know, what does it matter? You have to be proud of what you do, you know, a long, long time. So I go back to no computers, no screens, no technology, none of that stuff. You got a brush, you got a pencil. That's what you do, you know. You give a sketch, you know, you paint the painting, you know, big, whatever. Anyway, so I've been cutting covers on books, and also I was an art agent, and my big client, who unfortunately very recently passed away, Walter Velez, who did all the Thieves World books and the myth books for Robert Asprin and all of that. He was my friend, my mentor, his family's my family, you know, and the man was amazing, but he didn't do what a lot of people do to get known. He didn't go to conventions. Nobody met him. Nobody knew him. He didn't get the accolades, the awards, but they all knew the books. They all know the books. Now that he's passed away, they're wanting to buy these paintings, you know, and they're available. Thousands of pieces of work, thousands, everywhere, wherever he went. The man was skilled in many ways. And so, and I know the people that I repped along the way. So I learned the business of art. And that is the point. You do what you do, you're learning skills, you have a thing you love. How do you get it out there? How do you get into that? You know, we're talking about today's current economic environment. It's always been a bad economic environment for artists. Hello.
True that.
I mean, actors, musicians, dancers, all of the arts, writers. Look what you're competing with, all these people who make words.
I think it's because there's a weird stigma about creative folks that people feel like they can ask them for things that they would never ask another type of business. And I don't remember.
I didn't do that to a doctor or a lawyer. But
Well, I don't remember who did it, but there was a video
book.
on the internet in the last couple of years of a guy who went around and took the exact things he's been asked as an artist and tried it on other businesses. So, like, can I have this T-shirt for free? I'll promote your store. Can I pay you for coffee next time if I tell people it's really good? Like, can I get the first one? And just things that all of the businesses were saying. Well, no, you have to buy your groceries, and it's like a lot of the creative stuff. I think because there are people who for their own reasons, do it more as a hobby. I mean, that's your option.
Yeah.
But when you're running a business and you have to pay a mortgage and things, it's
Right.
a little hard that there is
Not
kind of
pay
a
rent.
stigma that
Absolutely.
creative people don't really need to be paid.
And it's
Yeah,
always
that's
Also,
Like,
like
or
we're
right
bringing
away.
it out of our class.
right.
You know, that,
Right.
well, you can just make another one. You know.
And the,
Yeah.
to the
That
other,
doesn't work. You just have fun and doodle all day.
Exactly.
Right, the other part of that
19
is,
months
Yeah.
on this film.
the other part of that is they think, oh, you've got books, you've got 12 titles.
Yeah.
You must be,
yeah,
you know, as rich as J.K.
Exactly.
Rowling. No,
exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we're all in, you know, small presses. Some of us are lucky enough to get signed with a big,
Right.
publisher, but it's like, you have to hustle, even with them.
I always
you have to
did.
hustle.
Always did. The difference was before, because I live in New York, so I had all the New York, I worked every New York publisher except one.
You're from New York? I never would have known.
No. I know, I hide it well. I lost my Brooklyn accent years ago.
So am I, but I only have
I'm in
3
Queens
words
now.
with the accent.
Right. Oh, you knew that. But I had the advantage, very clever. I had the advantage of being 25 minutes away from any publisher I wanted to see, and to see them in person, where you sat down with the portfolio in person. You're not sending it in the ether through email that they may or may not open, and you get feedback on the spot. You know, that is
That's
so,
huge.
that's huge. It's so important, and I know them all. I mean, I work with Don Walheim. He wasn't easy to work with, you know, and Betsy's my friend, his daughter, and he was just knew the market better than anybody. I've been doing fantasy and science fiction magazine. I just finished another one. It'll be up January, February edition. Oh God, early 80s. I did 28 covers, I think, over the years. Because I used to do it twice a year, and I used to get 2 a year. And now they're down, because of the economy, to 6 a year, bi-monthly. And that's a shame, because the writing, the authors,
Yes.
and Gordon Van Gelder, who's the publisher and editor, is wonderful. I've known him for years. He was at St. Martin's, and I did all my Sherlock Holmes stuff with him. And the market's changing and dying off, because I live in Queens, and I'll tell you now, Queens and the Bronx do not have one bookstore. Not one bookstore. Like, we're never going to read a book? Hello, authors. I mean, why can't you have both? I don't get it. Amazon's coming in now into Queens, into Long Island City, and building a headquarters in Queens. And I hear they're building a warehouse here.
So I think that comes down to a very relevant key
Yes.
factor in
Exactly.
being able to monetize
Yes.
and continue to monetize is that, like any other business, you have to adapt to changing
Exactly.
circumstances and try to get ahead of the curve as much as possible.
Exactly.
You have to really, as the publishing industry has been particularly hard hit,
Very hard.
and as we know, our news media, for example, is in an extremely bad situation right now because the internet.
Yep.
And it's very hard to actually, you can't keep a bunch of investigative reporters
Right.
flying across the world doing dangerous stuff and pay them to do that
Right.
when you aren't getting, money for every issue. You now have to find ways to and so that adaptation period led to a very big shift in the way the media was disseminated and how much money was coming in for it. And it's also led to us getting much worse reporting as a result.
Yeah.
And so it is with every other part of the industry, film, music, books, everything. It's not like you're going to sell all your books in a bookstore anymore.
Right.
It's not like your movies are going to. Theaters are smaller theaters have been closing across the country, across the world.
Right.
And like everything else, it's all gone online. But the monetization scheme is much, much smaller
Yes.
per view. Much smaller per view. So I actually heard from. I was in a producers meeting with a director I've been working with, who's a good friend who's in Italy. We're having like online calls, so that is a bonus that I can work with people across the world like that. But and he was talking about a friend of his who spent $200,000-300,000 on a film, sold it to Netflix for $1,500.
Jesus.
Right. You can pay your rent on that one.
Yeah, I think that brings us up to, what do you do to, put your brand out there, to do marketing? And as I was visiting with him earlier, I went ahead and a few years ago polled the top sellers in my publishing house. 12 of them. I said, what did you do to become such a big seller? And I got 12 emails back with 12 different things that they did, each one swearing them. This is the only way to do it. I was at a recent convention, same thing. This is the only way to do it. And I was on this panel and I said, it's the only way for you. What you have to find out is who your audience is and what works for you. And it may be a multitude of things that you have to do, but in this saturated market, both art and writing and film and that sort of thing, you have to make sure that people know you're out there. And that's the hard thing, is how do you kind of stick your head up above the crowd? And that's, again, a personal thing. And I'm not sure how any of us could even say, okay, this is what you should do, because I don't know your life and I don't know what you're into and what would work.
I do have a recommendation for that, and this is going to separate strange. And it actually kind of, it is what you should do, but it applies more to what you said that's different for every person. What you do is, if you are creating whatever industry you're in, you allot one business day a month to just research. And that's, for me, I'm researching, are there new social media? Is there new PR? Are there new printers? Are there new products I can put my work on? What's the trends? And then also you have to ask yourself, what are you comfortable with? My general rule of thumb is, if it is PR or a product or something that you would not appreciate getting yourself, don't put your work on it. If you feel like you're being spammed, don't do that back to other people, because they used to say there's no such thing as bad PR, and then social media came along, and now there is. So you don't do any kind of PR that you are not comfortable receiving yourself. It's definitely but yeah, you have, because the social media stuff changes so fast, and I'm not even current on it, and I researched it a month ago. So there 3 people told me about new services they're using to promote books that I've never heard of today, and I'm like, whoa, what did I miss?
It's also, for me, one of the key things is be flexible, because your life is going to get in the way. My career arc was doing really great until I became caregiver for my mom. Stopped me dead. At the same time, my 27-year relationship broke up, and the game industry, which was my primary bread and butter, switched over to video games, all at the same time. Okay, and I spent about 10 years completely invisible. I was doing my best, but I was over-medicated. I look at the art, and it was terrible. I can look at the dates on it and go, shit. Yeah, I was doing the best I could, but I couldn't do much. And what I did was bad. I lost clients right, left, and center. And I had to completely reinvent myself once I finally came up for air and came back into the convention circuit, and I'm pretty much back where, I'm close to back where I was before. But thank God, in my case, for the old school renaissance of gaming, because my name now has cachet for having been old.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's true. Again, I have 38 years of knowing these people, so, Gordon Danielda called me to say, are you available to do a cover? I didn't look for it, because he knew who I was. So that's also, I've been selling on eBay for 15 years, my prints, and small things, because they don't buy big things, but because I have a presence there, which if you start now, I don't know if it would be quite the same. And people say, well, why aren't you at this side or that side? I stay in one place because I can't be monitoring. There's a lot of work to this damn stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, all the copy I have to write and all the stuff I have to do all the time, and the packing and the shipping and the this and the that, and
And if we made enough, we'd hire an assistant.
Exactly.
Well, but then if your assistant can't sign books for you, and if they're personalized, and then they send them to the wrong people, and you're like, what are you like? No, I'm terribly for that happen. But I do crowdfunding with Kickstarter, so it's like people don't realize how much work that is.
Yeah.
But I will say, they talk about the bad economy. Well, which economy are you talking about? Because the wonderful thing about the internet and shipping is, you can sell to all over the world.
Yeah, well, that's it.
And you've
Have a
got that
lot.
long tail
And
thing.
one of the things I look for is the issue with that is, especially like with this book that just came out, this is a heavy book. It's 300 pages. So if you're shipping it internationally, it's expensive.
It is very.
Someone is paying pretty much as much for shipping as it cost me to print the book. Now, printing the book is expensive. So my thing that I always look for is what could I give people that doesn't add to the weight of the book? And I've noticed more publishers are embracing this. Ingram Spark now offers to let you, in any order of print books you do from them, add a personalized page just for that order. So you could do them for an event, you could do them for a project. It doesn't cost anything extra. You can just say, this batch of books gets this. And I do custom illustrations on my covers with markers and pens, things like that, or small lightweight things, because if you are going for an international market, shipping is a huge factor.
It's huge, very expensive. I had to sell a print to somebody in Spain, and it cost more than the price of the print to get it. It was like $34. At the time, $32 print. She paid $34 for shipping. I mean, it was a big 16 by 20 print. I mean, but it's crazy stuff. Well, okay, so we have pros and cons to everything, and we try to work into these things. Yes, you have a planet-wide audience. You can send things through eBay to Japan, to Australia, to all over the place. Great, and if they're willing to pay the shipping, God bless you, But you also have amazing competition. Everybody thinks they can put a book out now. Everybody can make a book good, and the public doesn't know, unless your name's Stephen King or a big name, what this is. Who is this? I mean, you go to conventions and they meet you personally. That's great. That's the best. I used to do 8, 9, 10 conventions a year years ago, all over. World Fantasy I always did, and all the East Coast stuff, and whoever would make me a guest, I would go. I even went to London for the World Fantasy. I went everywhere. I went to Ottawa. I was all over the map. So I got myself out there. But now, how expensive is it to do this? I remember staying in a hotel that was $40 a room and sharing it with a friend. Yeah. Hello. And it's cheap here.
I actually have a really good recommendation for that it took me time to figure out. But if you are spending any money for what you do, supplies, printing, and you are traveling to conventions, get a Hyatt credit card. Because you will earn your points. I never pay for hotel stays. It's great, or whatever your hotel is. But Hyatt has the best deal. So if you do Kickstarters, pull in $20,000 and spend $9,000 on shipping, that's about 2 nights at a hotel free if you put it through a Hyatt credit card. So that's been like a huge.
Okay, well that's interesting. There are things to do, but
use the system.
Again, you have to work, and I think the term somebody said, reinventing yourself and always coming up with something new. I mean, the same thing in music. Those that are successful always. I remember when Simon and Garfunkel broke up. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. But when Paul Simon was going to go on his own, until Graceland came around, I couldn't. I mean, it was a long time before your time. You're too young to know about this. I know about this. But then he comes up with a Graceland. But you see what he had to do. He had to reinvent himself, do his own music.
Yeah, sorry.
Speaking of music. That's a loud one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You know what? I'm shutting my sound off right
That's
now.
what I just
Nobody calls me anyway. Doesn't matter. Anyway, but it's the same thing for writing and art. So you have got the scales here, and they're going. Also, authors today are now for the ebooks. For small press, responsible for paying for their covers, for reprints. They come to me. I've had several come to me. I'd like to, reprint it as an ebook, and I will pay you. What do you want? And we don't have any money, but authors don't have money. And where I was, where is it? The Attack of the Giant Baby here. I got like $2,000 here in 1981. Is it say 1980? I can't even see. I think it's 1980. Who's going to pay me $2,000 today? You're lucky I get an ebook. They offer you $100 or $200. It's one thing if they're a reprint and I've already done the work. Okay, I can't pay the rent, but I can get some food. But they're not going to get that kind of money today, and that's the problem for whatever we do. And are our rents less? Is that food bill less? Is that gas less? No.
Or your business expenses.
Or your business expenses, everything that you do. So you have to balance financially. And I'm good with money. I'm really good. You know, I got a mantra. Do I want it or do I need it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I want it.
Yeah.
No, but this is the whole thing. But I think you asked the question about has it gone too far? You asked me before. There is this pendulum. Although we have not a single bookstore in Queens or in the Bronx, they're going to. Why can't you have a children's bookstore? You'll make money with parents coming in. You have a birthday party room. They'll buy books for their kids. Have all sorts of fun promotions. You could do this. How does a child has to hold and touch a book? And children's books are a beautiful market. They're beautiful. The illustrations are great. They're one of the most beautiful markets for art. The children's books, to appeal to children to buy books, and then you take the bookstore away. Excuse me, Barnes & Noble used to have a room in the back where the kids could go in there and look at books and pick books. And sometimes you want to touch it and feel it.
Absolutely.
I can't buy clothing online. I want to touch it and feel it and try it on. I don't want. My daughter would say, "Well, I can buy more shoes. I can send them back." Yeah, now you got to schlep to the post office. Got to repack it. You got to print out a label. You got to go there. You got to get rid of the thing, and now you got to find another one. Give me a break.
But I know San Francisco's actually been doing, and I have friends with a couple of authors there, a lot to the actual city to invest in and preserve the independent bookstores and keep them going.
That's
But
great.
I think it's a double-edged sword. It's like some of the bigger bookstore chains are going, but then I've heard from some people that independent bookstores are doing better in a lot of cities.
Because they don't have the competition.
Because what they're offering is not, I mean, a big corporate bookstore is offering something very similar to Amazon, but an independent bookstore is offering, what does the staff recommend? I mean, look at Bookman's does amazing here in Tucson because the staff recommends books, because there are events there, because the authors come in. And I think eventually when things balance out, hopefully we'll have more of a more beneficial independent bookstore market.
Yeah, hopefully.
I think
but-
that's very possible. I think it's the same in many other, same with, I believe that there will be a resurgence to some degree of small independent theaters. I think that, you know, the death of large bookstores was predictable. They inflated prices, had way too big a footprint, spent way too much money on way too much space that was barely utilized.
Exactly.
And then the internet. So, you know, I think that that leads, though, to, again, that getting ahead of the curve thing. And I think one of the most salient points I would make about any aspect of monetizing an artist's career comes from, I said this to not to brag, but I said this to somebody who I was mentoring like 3 days before one of the top talent managers in the entire world posted some of this online, which was, if you're in the creative fields, you have to be creative about how you manage your career.
Exactly.
So what it comes down to is that you know, if you whatever it is that you're doing, look now at your business process creatively. Create things that weren't there before. Create new pathways to develop fan base. Create new pathways to monetize fan base. And you know, certainly understand how business operates if you can. That would be really useful if you intend to ever make any money at something. But then get creative. Figure out new ways to get publicity.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm reminded of some of the famous schlock movie theaters in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s who did all kinds of crazy publicity campaigns and like. I can't remember somebody here will probably remember, but the name of the filmmaker who was famous for doing things like doing a horror movie and putting like things that would sort of pop out of the people's seats, and that became a thing. People came to the movies because they wanted that experience.
Well,
And,
I think you're also seeing a change because there's starting to be this trend of like longer and longer movies, and I stopped going to the movie theater because physically it got uncomfortable to sit there. The seats weren't that comfortable, but now we have a trend, at least like here in Arizona, of theaters like Roadhouse coming in with really comfortable seats. They don't cost more, and I go to the movies probably at least once or twice a month now, whereas prior to Roadhouse I maybe went once or twice a year. Like, it's a huge difference for me. Like, the experience is changing. And
Does yours have the lounge chairs that we have?
all the way back around.
Yeah.
Full
They'll
food
bring you
service
food.
to your
I
seat.
actually
Yeah.
fell asleep during a movie. It was so
Fair enough.
That's the best part, though. If your significant other drags you to a movie you don't want to see, it's fine. You've got a really comfortable place to take a nap. You've got snacks. You're good.
Exactly. You
We have to
know.
bear in mind, though, that and you know that the majority of so in the movie biz, I notice a really funny thing. Even filmmaker friends of mine will ask other filmmaker friends, "What movies have you seen recently?" And they all talk about major releases.
Yeah.
when they talk about smaller releases, indie films, they have not made the flip in their minds to consider that a real movie. So
That's a shame.
and it's the same with authors, and it's the same with artists. Unless you have distinguished yourself somehow in a larger way, they don't think you're real. And that's in part, as we just stated, because there are also a lot of people who have no training, no experience, no, and just start doing stuff. And it's great. I mean, express your art. Please, God, express your art. But that being said, for those who have really put everything they have into an arts career and have put it all out there and worked really hard to develop it, that's your competition, and people only have so much time, so much money. They're not going to just spend money on a book because you wrote one. They don't know who you are. So you've got to find a way to distinguish yourself in a marketplace. Versus, if I'm making a sci-fi film, my competition is freaking Marvel. How do you deal with that? The way you deal with that is by slowly, carefully over time building a fan base that is aware of your stuff and really likes your stuff. And that means, and here's the big polar shift for a lot of artists, is that when I'm making a movie, I'm not just considering what I want to make. I'm also considering what my audience would like to see. I'm making it, it's not just a cathartic artistic experience for me, but it's a gift to my audience, and I look at it that way, is that I'm trying to make something that I hope will be beneficial in some way for others. And then, of course, if you're able to develop enough interest in following, other people tend to sometimes hire you to do stuff as well. And so that's extremely important, but it's critical to think that way. It's also critical to think about microtransactions, I believe, in that as an artist, I made this statement to several filmmakers a while ago. From an artistic perspective, your piece of art is a beautiful artistic expression that can bring great emotional goodness to other people, or it can do something good for people. From a marketing perspective, it's a commercial for a product.
It's an asset.
It's exactly. So a movie is a commercial for everything I can sell about the movie. A book is a commercial for the actual physical book or the electronic book, or maybe a poster of the cover or whatever else you can possibly sell for it. So if people are emotionally invested, emotionally involved in you and your work, then for their own reasons, not just because of you, then there's a variety of different ways that you might be able to monetize by delivering something that they see as valuable, and that's the real key.
And that's one of the things that I've seen as I started my Patreon a year and a half ago, because I had applied to Gen Con, where I'd been going for umpty-squillion years and was finally getting back to the point where I was going again. And they had a juried art show, and they did not choose to invite me. And I happened to have, no.
Oh my God.
And I happened to have my Facebook open that day, and I said, Gen Con didn't want me. And the internet exploded. It was very, very gratifying, but it set off the light bulb in my head, because I'd been thinking about Patreon. But I was going, I'm an old has-been, I'm washed up, nobody will come. And I looked at this and I said, I'm starting my Patreon this week.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Mine's a year, and it's why I can do a 300-page book instead of a 100-page book, because I'm getting paid every month.
Yeah, and but one of the things, pursuant to what you were just saying, is I'm trying really hard with Patreon not to work for them, but to work with them. And that's something of a different mindset that I had in the past, where it's like, it's not that I'm letting the inmates run the asylum, because ultimately, if I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, my basic Patreon is help me do the stuff I want to do, okay? But I want it to be something they want as well. And trying to listen and listen and listen. Tell me what you are interested in. Tell me what pleases you. Tell me what doesn't. I made use of Inktober and said, everybody at this level or who jumps up to this level will get one of the pieces that I'm doing in Inktober, and I'm going to be frickin' experimental. Some of the stuff came out really awful, but those who had paid the most over time got first pick.
Right.
And then I worked my way down.
Okay, what you're doing is very important, because the internet is very impersonal in many ways, and there's so much, a glut of available art and all sorts of things things to do and buy on the internet. you're making it very personal by doing this, because when you come to conventions, you know, you meet people and they like meeting the artist or the writer. I met so-and-so. And I remember one of my first early conventions, Stephen King was there and Peter Straub and all these people and David Morrell. And I got to be friends with them because of this. But we all became fans of the work and all the people that came, because you can talk to them and be with them. Oh yeah, I was out there with Stephen King or whoever it was, you know, and they get to meet you. But because it's so expensive to do a lot of conventions and all of this other stuff, and for people to attend them as well, and then have money to still buy
Your stuff.
their stuff, it's so nice to have an audience that feels they can personally get to know you and you're listening to them. I think we've lost a lot of that in all this
Well,
stuff.
I think it's really important to
Yeah.
decide as a creator, what's your goal?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is your goal to be famous? Is your goal to, I mean, my first goal when I really started doing Kickstarter and all that was I wanted to put out 50 books by the time I'm 50, and I'm more than halfway there, so I'm really happy about that. But I occasionally, when I'm doing, especially if I'm doing a game Kickstarter, I get emails from people who say, why are you not doing this? And usually they're comparing me to a company that is raising somewhere between $40,000 and $100,000. And I said, but this company spends a third, half their time, they do one game a year, and everything else is working with retail, everything else is working with conventions. And for me, my passion is doing the writing, doing the art. So I want to minimize the business side, the clerical side, the pain in the butt side for me of things. Some people go, how do you want to do like 3 books a year? You're nuts. I'm like, but that's what I love doing. So for me, like Patreon, I've had a very similar experience. It's a way, my choice was I'd rather have a smaller number of fans on Patreon, have 300 less people on Kickstarter, but I make more per copy of what I'm doing because I'm doing it directly, and I get to work with them. I get photos from them. And I think it's very important if you're doing something like Patreon, when you're asking people what they want, you have to set limits.
Oh, yes.
Like, here's our theme for the month. Pick within this. What's your favorite animal?
Yeah.
But the best part is that if you're an artist who is doing paintings, you will sell more of your paintings to the people who help suggest what you paint. There's about, so I not only get a certain amount per month, but I sell 2/3 to half. This we sold almost all, but I think we sold all but 24 paintings out of the 300-page book before the Kickstarter because of Patreon, which is amazing.
When I just did, Steve Jackson Games got the fantasy trip back, and I did a ton of illustrations and all, like 157 illustrations and counters. And he posted in the, after the Kickstarter was complete, which was a $300,000 Kickstarter, all of those people were told Liz Danforth is willing to sell the originals. And my email went,
Really?
yeah.
Wow,
And I
nice.
made twice as much in selling those originals as Steve paid me to do them in the first place.
Well, one of the most popular PR experiences I had was completely accidental. I did an Ice Dragons book, and one of my fans commented on Facebook when it came out, are you going to do Desert Dragons? And they spelled it wrong and said Dessert Dragons. So I'm a snarky, ridiculous person, so I responded very seriously with, yes, there will be a candy cane worm, there'll be a chocolate fudge dragon.
Where do I get that?
Yeah.
No, it's for sale at my
Are you
booth. My
serious?
Facebook
Yeah.
exploded, and that book was one of the most popular Kickstarters I did. It was way better than Ice Dragons. And
That's
everyone,
awesome.
where do you get inspired from? Pay attention to typos on social media.
Yeah.
but there is like, I love that interaction with fans, and I think there's two sides of the technology. You can have an experience where you're more separated because if you're not at conventions, you don't get that, or you can try to tailor it where using Patreon, using Kickstarter. You are doing more of the clerical work yourself, which is a pain. Shipping sucks.
Yeah.
But having that relationship with the fans is, like, I wouldn't trade that for anything in
that's
the
the
world.
thing, is you need to get more personal today because it just means more to them. And of course, you'll do better. They'll be happier, and they'll recommend things. That's really important.
There's an interesting thing there too. The nature of celebrity has changed, as you may all notice, dramatically with the advent and deeper touch of social media. And I mean, when I was a kid, it was an actor who was in a big movie was untouchable. And there's still a few of those, right? I mean, you're not likely to invite Tom Cruise to lunch or something. But there's really now an expectation that there's a greater level of personal interaction and personal knowledge of you as a creator, as an artist, and regardless of your level of fame, unless you're absolute A-list, in which case there's still that expectation of not being able to touch that person. And I don't think that's going to last very long. In fact, the recent research is starting to show some reports in Hollywood Reporter and so on that celebrity isn't selling films the way it used to either. So I think that's a beautiful thing because it allows one to, for an artist, it takes the pressure off to try to pretend you're some deity-like creature or something where you're not. And it also gives you this opportunity to have a much more personal and sometimes even very in-depth relationship with people who would consider themselves your fans, quote unquote. I don't even like the word fan very much. It's like I like supporters or something like that.
Patrons.
I use the term because exactly that. And that's another thing. The whole patron concept has come back in a beautiful way where you can be supported by a crowd. But the other side of that is, of course, that because it's necessary then to have that level of personal interaction, you do have to remember that you're on almost all the time emotionally, and that you have an obligation to the people who are looking to you for a product, and maybe in some cases maybe even looking up to you a little bit, and it's a tremendous amount of work to make sure that you are just touching base. I mean, and doing it well. Not doing damage in the process.
Yeah, if you don't know etiquette for whatever the social media is you're using, if it's new or you're not experienced, definitely see if there's some articles on email etiquette, on Facebook etiquette, so that you're not offending people out there with what you're doing.
I mean, I love nothing more than some things more, but very few things more than somebody coming to me and telling me they liked my work and having a dialogue about that. I love that, and I make a lot of friends that way, like really good friends. But now. I have 70,000 Facebook followers, and I go to events, and that's just Facebook. And I go to events, and people will say, "Hey, it's me," and they go, "Hi, it's me too."
I'm yesterday.
I'm
This show is great because we have
exactly right. Yes, of course, I know that, but
I know.
I don't remember who you are because I just had a conversation with 30,000 people.
As another aside to this thing is, there are places out there that will tell you there are all these wonderful things you can do for nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
You can speak to this group and you can go and present because of this organization if your book is about some disease or something that you've got and overcome or whatever. But when you're selling entertainment, which is what we are all doing, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to figure out. You can't go and speak to the Elks about entertainment. Read my books, read my fantasy, read my, archaeology book. They don't want that. But there are places where you can do that other than conventions.
Yes.
Where that, you're speaking to groups about the process of writing or celebrity or whatever it is. What is it like to be you? And I think that's something that it's an avenue I haven't explored, but I think I would like to explore where I live, and then extend that. But I think the real key that you've been mentioning over and over here is, and it's what I discovered some time ago, is you have to go where the fans are. You have to go where your market is. People who will read your stuff or look at your paintings or buy whatever, or see your films. You got to go where that is. Yeah. And if we could do more one-on-one, or 1 to 1,500 people or whatever it is at a convention where they know, here's a face, I've seen you before, you're that writer, whoever, even that I'll take, really, I will. As long as they say, well, I know you from someplace.
No, that's really, really important. There's another thing I did that inadvertently didn't realize. We do things we don't realize sometimes, what the repercussions or lack of for that. I was doing painting and presenting stuff, and I did a lot of science fiction. I didn't realize until I was pulling out paintings from my closet how much I did and going through the books, because in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of science fiction writing, great writers, great writers. I met Ted Sturgeon. I met, Asimov used to come to the conventions. I met all these people, Lynn Carter's house. He lived in Queens. He was right there when, Uncle Lynn, crazy Lynn. But, so I knew all these people. And so, that's the whole, they got the fans coming to them and we went to them. It was like that. You do have to do that. But I didn't realize that after I did that, I really got into the horror market. And then I got into the mystery market. I did children's books. I'm all over the map. So as you know, in gaming, great to do gaming art, but you know how many folded? How many disappeared over the years? Iron Crown Enterprises, Walter used to do stuff, tons of TSR stuff, tons of all sorts of small companies that just started and disappeared. And so to be more diverse in many ways, where you're going, and it doesn't mean you're not true to what you love the most, but there are other places that you can open some doors so you're not stuck. The two biggest markets in publishing have always been romance and mystery.
Right.
They will reprint Sherlock Holmes book, Agatha Christie books, and put new covers. I did the Cat Who books. These crazy Cat Who books. What did I do? 26 of them. I don't know what it was.
Oh my
For
goodness.
10 years, I did those books. Sweet. And I was telling them before. I got paid for the hardcover book for this about $2,000 a cover. What am I doing? Mystery, because it was for Putnam.
Right,
the hardcover. Big companies. Okay, I'm in New York. I can do that. I'm doing clues, mystery things, and cat paw prints. They were big paintings on canvas, and not to be bored. The paw prints are going up on this one, and they're going down on this one. Every other book, if you would have put them together, going up like this, just so I wouldn't be bored. And then they would do soft book, paper book, books. You get paid half of hardcover's first rights. This is second rights. I got half of that. Then audio books Dove Audio did audio cassettes. I got paid again. And then Thorndike Press did large print books. I got paid again. It was the sweetest deal for 10 years. You don't get that anymore because now when they buy your art, it's all rights.
Yes.
It's all right. So you get cut right there. They're buying world rights. They're buying everything. Unless if you're a pain in the ass about it, goodbye, you go.
Yeah.
Because they think they rule. So it was a different time. But if you find some other places you wouldn't expect to go, like when you didn't expect the dessert thing to happen.
That was great.
But you know what? Something like that is so much fun. I didn't see the art, but if the art is really different and fun, you can make prints and sell prints. You got product. That's the
Well,
other
and
thing
I think
we
a
have.
big thing too
Yeah.
online is it's not just sales.
Yeah.
If you're on Patreon or you're on Kickstarter or you're previewing movies, you get a level of feedback that is
Yeah.
much more detailed. And honestly, with Patreon, people basically pay you to give you feedback. That's amazing. So I know these are people who care a lot because they're paying me every month, even if it's just a couple bucks. And I will know which prints I should get extra of for conventions or my online store, things like that. So you're not investing your own money
Right.
in things that used to be very expensive.
Also,
Guessing.
Because if you're
Yeah.
doing, well, how many you said, 75?
175. Yeah.
Pictures, you can't bring 10, 15 prints of each of those to
Oh.
physically to a convention that doesn't
Right.
work.
Yeah.
Right.
And if 10 of them sell and the others don't, then where do you store those? So there's a lot of the feedback.
Right.
And then the one thing I've noticed that is actually one hard fast rule for PR that works for whatever type of creating you're doing. You will always get a better PR reaction, whether it's in person or online, if you show your process.
Yes.
I can post finished paintings. I will never get as many likes on finished paintings or finished things as, I mean, if you're a writer, have your draft printed out or you have a laptop and a cup of coffee and it's Word, I will get way more likes if I crop it in and show just the painting. I don't get as many likes as if I zoom out and you see my messy palette and my cup of coffee. People love the demystifying. They think you just magically poof and your cover for the book appears.
Yeah.
But if you show, if you show behind the scenes photos from, I mean, that's huge now. Most movies now are showing set photos. They're showing makeup photos, things like they never used to do
This
that
is
as
true,
much.
however, I will say in the film industry, you have to be very strategic about that. Example, there was a film, I can't remember the name of it, but it was based on a big, huge novel series that came out a while back, and the very first publicity campaign that they went with was showing behind-the-scenes stuff. They didn't show anything, any trailers, anything else about the movie. First they showed behind-the-scenes stuff, unfinished sets, looked like crap. The movie tanked. Because the first impression that people got was, this will suck. You've
Yeah.
destroyed the property I love. it recovered because the books were so big, but the film itself did not do well, and I believe that's why, because it was a good film. So I think it's important to be, in film we hire set photographers to take photos, and then we go through them. And I try, if I have control, which I don't always, but if I have control, then I will say that never sees the light of day.
Exactly.
But that does, because at least because there are things that, film sets are often very, especially indie film sets are often very messy places and very, it's not at all glamorous to make the film really. It's just the promotions afterwards that look that way.
Well,
So.
I think both of those things, though, speak to that same personalization.
Yeah,
we're
very true,
talking
very
about.
true.
That it's
Definitely important.
you're right. You don't just poop it out. And I had an interesting discussion with one of my supporters, because I said, when I first started, I noticed I had a series in my blog when I was blogging of pictures have stories, and I would tell the story behind the picture, things that were about it, what I was thinking about, what the Easter eggs in the drawing might be, and things like that. And those always got way more interest. And I said, I felt really awkward because I felt like I was a magician showing you how I did my tricks. And he said, no, because a stage magician is the art of deception. What you're showing is the art of creation.
Oh, very good.
And I was like,
Awesome.
dang.
Very good.
But anything that shows someone how much work you put in, because I think people are much willing to spend money if they realize how much work it is. And there is, again, that like stigma mythology of like, we just meditate in the moonlight and bam, this beautiful finished product appears. And there wasn't editing, there wasn't sketches and revisions.
Right,
And, I think anything that shows your process as a creator, even if you're just talking about it, it makes it more personal, but it also shows the level of work. And I know it's like if you go to buy a piece of furniture, if you know that was handcrafted and that somebody spent hours carving it, you are willing to pay more for it. You understand the value, and I think that.
And I think the other side of that as well is that there's a certain educational value to
Yes.
it. I mean, when you see well constructed behind the scenes stuff on films, when you see the artist's process, you learn things, and that's a value. That's
It is.
that.
Well, then they'll come and question you too
Yeah.
for making another contact,
Mhm.
because
Right.
how much getting that feedback, which you wouldn't get.
And it goes to the key
Same
of
way.
both delivering value and perceived value
Exactly.
to your audience.
Exactly.
You want to give all the time. Give. That's really. The
And you
process.
need to come up, which all of us do. I think that's how we all sort of are successful. Is there's certain things that always sell. There's certain things, everyone has their own idea of dragons, and if you do something that's really different, or a creature that you do something different with it in some way, in your own way, you will most likely get buyers for that thing. So, in harder times, every once in a while, I'll go through that. So recently, I've been in the dodo bird fixation. Dodo bird sell, because I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan. I had hundreds of old and reprints of Alice books, which I'm in the process of getting rid of the collection. I'm selling money very well. But that dodo bird, it's the damn dodo bird, that people love it, and I did a lot of research about them and all this other stuff, and I find when I do a drawing, and I'm doing it on like a charcoal paper, like a gray or something, and I'm doing it in the Prisma pencil, but adding the white highlights, they will buy every single one of them. No, and I'm doing
And
this
it doesn't
whole
matter if
series.
a painting took 100
No.
times more effort.
Right, if
Yeah,
you're drawing,
what you love the most or put the most work into.
Well,
I
because
mean,
people feel this. They feel when somebody's heart is in it. There's something intangible about this, but it's something that people say.
if it speaks to you.
It speaks to you, and Alice in Wonderland fans are nuts. They will buy anything Alice. Part of the Alice group over on Facebook. Oh my God, the things they bought, they show that they bought, that they did, no matter what you do with Alice. So there's these sort of traditional Poe, another thing. Lovecraft and Poe. No matter what I will do, I can do Ravens from now till tomorrow every which way. I mean, they'll just love the Poe themes as I do. So I love it, and they sense that. So there's certain writings that you can go back to, and even I don't know, in writings, if there are things that can allude to these things in some way in that time, that period. People love certain things, and we have to grab that too. And it is old but new. You're making it new,
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. So you find these funny little quirky things and I want to see these dessert. It sounds so intriguing.
I was so hungry because, if you've painted hundreds of dragons, you don't need reference for the dragons. I needed reference for the desserts. So my boyfriend, why are you so hungry? I just spent 5 hours staring at of photos of strawberry shortcake while I'm drawing this.
No, but that's good. That's good for you.
I'm so hungry.
Now I'm proficient at strawberry shortcake. You can do strawberry
I can
shortcake
do
creatures,
illustrated
a whole
cookbook,
world of
right?
them. But one thing does lead to another, and you never know where it comes. Like you said, someone can ask you to do something, or they like something, and something you may never have done. An animal. I love painting animals. I do lots of just plain old animal things, and boy, they love penguins. They like puffins, penguins. I once wanted to do an ugly animal calendar, aardvarks and moles, that star-faced moles and these unusual animals, because they're so weird looking and eyes and all these crazy. I love painting animals. And every drawing that I'll do, and I do a nice finish drawing, and I sell it with a mat. Finish is very important. It's in a mat, in Mylar sleeve, and they get a product that is clean and neat and wonderful, and it's standard size. It's 11 by 14 mat. They can go to Michael's and pick out a frame when it's on sale and get the coupons. So you have to. These are things that you do, and by matting prints, it's far more work. I have to buy the backing board. I have the mats cut for me. I have a place that cuts these mats. Great, it's great prices too. And then all this other stuff that you spend money on. The Mylar, a great place for Mylar. And there's packing tape you go through when you're mailing. The packing tape. I use that Scotch heavy duty stuff.
So much
Go to Home Depot. Don't go to Staples for it because it's so much cheaper.
Or go to Lowe's, especially if your boyfriend works there. It's 10% off.
Well, right. Don't go to Staples for it. But these are the things, little things that become really important, and you're known for in some way because you've made it so your own. You have to personalize what you do for you, attaching, and then they pick up on it. So it's.
But I think if you don't treat your work well, you can't expect your fans to treat it well. So I'm always shocked. We do a lot of Comic-Cons, but we don't do the mats, but we always do backing boards and bags for ours.
Backing boards.
Most people do bags. I'm always shocked when I see people walk here and they've spent $20 to $30 on a print from an artist. They didn't even put it in a bag.
Yeah,
you can't spend 15 cents to get a piece of plastic to protect your. That's not respectful to your fans who are buying your work. Then, and it's like if you were selling your movies on burned DVDs with handwritten labels and. You don't need a case for your DVD. Just hold it.
Yeah, this is totally a legit copy.
Or like you just skip the book cover and it's just a plain white dust. You don't need a cover on your book, right, guys? It's so odd.
But presentation is important. You're right. I do sell unmatted prints in backing board and the Mylar, but the price is much less. So I'm charging a little bit more for that mat, but technically I'm making some money on the mat because I'm buying them in bulk. If you buy, I think there's a price range 1 to 20. It's this price. 20 to 40. It's this price. If you buy just don't buy 4. You buy the 20. The 11 by 14 mats. And so, it becomes a storage problem. My house looks like a warehouse, especially now. And years ago, just a little aside, I decided that, going back 38 years, that I'm not selling my original paintings. I'll sell prints, because that's my retirement. Well, guess what? This is now my retirement. Nobody will buy the art. Because I don't have the money, the friggin' money. They don't have the money, so I got these hundreds of paintings. So, one whole room, what would have been the large bedroom is a storage room. This is what happens. So
I've gotten really lucky in that respect in that what I offer is like, hey, if you're Kickstarter funding and you go up higher, you go up to a certain level, here's where you get the original with the book and it's from the book, so you're buying them together.
Yeah, but I used to paint paintings, this because it's a giant baby, it's a 3-foot painting. It's a 3-foot painting. You can't give that one away. I gave it to my daughter when my grandson was born. That's a better place for it. It's on the wall. But I used to paint really big, So now I'm coming down on hardboard, and I paint on canvas. So it's hard for me to give that away because there's a lot of.
Well, I charge them more. Like you
gotta charge them
spend hundreds of dollars more than just the book, but I find it's easier to get someone to buy the original if they're getting the book that it's in.
Let's go. How's that time?
I think we're just about
I think we're out of
We are out of time. I can hear people rumbling after that. But I thank you. I think this was very interesting.
If I may, At 2 o'clock, look in your schedule. I'm giving a one-person class on how to get started as an actor, so it's very relevant to this.
Very
If
good.
anyone has interest in that.
And tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I'm doing an art and hardship. And if anybody, like if Liz, if you'd like to come be on the panel, they put me on this alone, and I was like,
I figured you were giving a talk.
I have notes, but I think it depends on who's in it. But I really think it's important to talk about how you turn that around and use it as fuel, and how it doesn't stop you.
Good art like your son. Yeah, what's on your water?
Oh, this is the most
Yeah.
popular thing I've ever painted, by the way, and it's 15 minutes, so we ignore all the ones I put 12 to 16 hours in watercolor, and I do this little guy and make good art, and
Yeah, the Neil Gaiman thing. That's literally on my bathroom wall. I've got to make good art.
So thank you everybody for coming,
At
and thank you
1
people for
o'clock
participating.
this afternoon, somewhere, I think it's in Mesa. I'm doing a pitch session for Music Up Publishing. If you have a 1 to 2 minute elevator speech about your book, first line from your book, I'll listen.
That's right.
Is that open to everyone? It's open to
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.